In the United States, I believe Master Staffieri mentioned this, prices have gone up by 1.5%, and in the UK by 24.4%. So prices are going down here, and significantly, and they're increasing elsewhere. This morning, there have been comparisons of the prices between Canada, the United States, and England, and our prices are lower. So in terms of percentage, our prices are going on. In terms of absolute prices today on the market, we have lower prices on the market than in many other countries. And what we want to do is invest even more in Canada in order to better serve Quebecers and Canadians. We want to do more. However, we need a foreseeable regulatory framework. We need to have policies that encourage investment and federal policies that encourage investment. And unfortunately, the rulings or decisions that have been made can harm competition. Thank you very much.
Merci, la parole est à vous.
Mr. Massé, you have the floor.
Appreciate the witnesses being here. I wish they were in person, but we do have, to note that this was conducted after there was resistance of them even appearing before this committee. I think that says a lot with regards to Canadians. We didn't have the same problem from another witness that came here earlier. But I do want to focus a little bit, though, on something that Mr. Entwistle said that is important, is that successive Conservative and Liberal governments have taken over $25 billion in spectrum auction costs into the pockets and the revenue, which we haven't seen go back to consumers. We've actually had pricing issues that are significant. And Mr. Entwistle, you noted that $100 per year is what you're financing for this, I suspect. Would this be a fee that you would say across the board, or is this a fee for your particular company? And I'd like to know which of the two it is.
That fee is across the board. That fee reflects the fact that Canadian wireless operators have historically paid the highest prices for spectrum through successive spectrum auctions in the world. That is a significant part of our cost base, and I would argue it's inconsistent with the policy of trying to improve affordability.
Yeah, and that is important to note because we bake in a cost there that's no doubt burdened by Canadians paying for that. And we've seen, ministers from Maxime Bernier to our current minister benefit from these revenues and not have proper consumer protection in place. So I don't want that to be lost, but I do want to move to Mr. Staffieri. You were receiving $31.5 million in compensation. Is that an accurate figure? That's what I've been told and what is reported in the media. And that is significantly higher than your employees. So is there a breaking point? I've had the opportunity to work with Ted Rogers in the past. I don't believe he ever received $31.5 million per year. So what can you say to the employees that you represent when that price is quite significantly higher than the average person working at Rogers?
Compensation of our named executive officers, as with any public company, is transparently disclosed in our proxy circular. And so the number is public. And importantly, the manner in which the board determined compensation for the named executive officers is included in that document.
So would that cost then, we've heard, would you agree that $100 per person for the spectrum auction costs, would you agree with that argument in terms of Mr. Entwistle? Is that what Rogers passes on to its customer base per year?
Well, I'll reiterate the points made by Mr. Entwistle in that we pay amongst the highest spectrum fees in the world, which is going to be an increasing concern as we look to have more and more spectrum.
I just asked simply whether that was the case for you, and that apparently not. I guess the point I'm making too is, I guess maybe could you put that in context in terms of how much of the cost of your salary is based on person's cost per year? And I don't know. I guess I would like to hear is like what warrants that, especially when that's basically 164 times more than the average telco worker is your salary.
I'm not sure I understand the question, but let me clarify. As I said, The board determines compensation for myself as well as named executive officers. And as we look to compensation for our employees generally, we always look to be competitive to attract and retain the best so that our employees can continue to do the best for our customers and for Canadians.
Well, I guess, I want to move to another, I guess, Mr. Bibick then. With regards to the investments that you've made, you also recently cut nearly 5,000 Canadians from a job. So can you explain your record profits and your market share and also your commitment to your employees when you laid off 5,000 Canadians just recently and their families? You are obviously concerned about your shareholders, but when you have 5,000 people that received the hatchet most recently, during a time when you actually just talked about the fact that many of the costs are going up for Canadians right now, 5,000 people lost their jobs at Bell during a time of the struggle. So how do you justify that versus the individual families now that lost their jobs?
Yeah, thank you. Well, this was a very difficult beginning of the year at Bell, and we certainly did not make that decision lightly or take it lightly. And first and foremost, I want to thank the folks at Bell who were asked to leave, for their significant contributions over the years, and we made sure that each employee had a fair and reasonable severance package, and we supported them with career transition services. We're not the only ones, unfortunately, who had to take these very, very tough decisions. In fact, my competitors had to make similar decisions in the recent past, as have other companies like Québécois, TVA, Chorus, CBC, Radio-Canada, all direct competitors of ours. And if you look to the U.S., Meta, Google, Microsoft, again, all direct competitors of ours, made massive decisions in the same vein, and
if I could,
we didn't take it lightly.
I appreciate that, but also you reduced your investment in the London, Ontario region recently because of the CRTC decision. Would you care to explain that? Why the CRTC decision decided to actually alter your business plan at the expense of consumers in the London region?
Yeah, so there were, back to combining the two questions that the member asked. Hugely important issue. We are faced with, as I mentioned earlier, in response to a question from Monsieur Garon, we're faced right now with a very unsupportive public policy and regulatory environment, so that had an impact. We have a very difficult economy in Canada. Like, let's not hide the fact that this economy is struggling. Productivity is amongst the lowest in the world.
Are you losing money as a corporation right now, or are you actually having profit margin increases or profits stabilized?
So
you're losing money?
Answer the question. So inflation is up, interest rates are up, and competition is increasing, which is an undeniably good thing for consumers, which we support. So if you put the three things together, technological change, lowering prices, difficult macroeconomic environment, and a wholly unsupportive public policy environment, companies have to transform and make adjustments, and this is what we've been doing.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too would like to express my disappointment that you're not here in person. I'm sure you could have got on your private jets to get here without too much trouble. And I'm glad, Mr. Staffieri, that you got your Wi-Fi fixed so that you could be in here. I'd like to start off, Mr. Staffieri, to ask a question. During your acquisition of Shaw, one of the whistleblowers from your transition team told me, and I think it was also in the media, that you were laying off 5,000 people and bringing these two companies together. How many people have you laid off?
In our coming together with Shaw, we've been very transparent from the outset that there would be duplication of roles. And as we work through the integration, we've been very thoughtful about the way we handle those duplication of roles. And so we launched a voluntary departure program so that our employees had the choice to choose.
Looking for a number. Can you please do? I'm on limited time. I'm sorry. Can you just give me a number?
As we work through those duplication of roles, we work through them. It isn't a number we've disclosed externally. But what I will say is
since you had a number of conditions, you had a number of conditions that the minister put on this acquisition, which included creating jobs, yet your own transition team said that you were cutting 5,000 jobs. Please answer the question.
Rogers is a net growth company. We made commitments in writing with respect to the Shaw merger, and we are on track to those commitments that we've made.
Okay, so you won't answer the question.
Annual disclosure.
You won't answer the question. I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on then. You also brag in your analysts' reports, your investor relations reports, your quarterly reports to shareholders. You brag about your average revenue per user going up every year. That's why Canadians feel they're paying more, because you're charging them more. So can you comment about why, to your investors, you brag about the average cost per user going up, while here you say and make claims about your Black Friday sale being what we should judge you by on your cell phone rates?
It's important to clarify at the outset that average revenue per user does not equal price. ARPU, or average revenue per user, is an accounting metric which is total revenue divided by number of customers, and it includes services that the customer can choose to add on, like device protection.
And yours has gone up from $50.75 in 2020 to almost $60 now in only 4 years. So I will ask you again, isn't that why Canadians feel their prices are going up and they're paying more, not less?
As I said, the calculation of ARPU includes additional services, but it also includes enterprise revenues, like Tesla is one of our customers. And so the revenues from there are included in total revenues. And so you have those business accounts, which have been growing for us, that have been supporting some of the increase that you see in ARPU.
Mr. Entwistle, I have a question for you. The carbon tax is going up 23% on April 1st. You run, as Rogers and Bell do, quite large retail networks, quite large fleets to manage manage all of your businesses. You also offer or have to maintain diesel fuel for your cell phone towers being brought up. Is the 23% increase in the carbon tax going to result in increased costs for cell phone rates and wire line users? You're on mute, I think.
I've taken it off. I don't envisage that particular cost flowing through to cell phone users. Secondly, TELUS is an organization that leverages our technology to bridge time and distance and reduce the carbon footprint. And our goal is to be not just carbon neutral, but nature accretive by 2027.
So you're going to be altruistic and eat those costs. You don't actually pass on and increase taxes to your customers.
I think as an industry, we've shown ourselves to be significantly proficient at eating costs. Again, if you go back to my remarks, compared to the G7 plus Australia,
you can see that, Mr. Entwistle, with the 60% operating gross margin, you're very generous on your eating of costs. A quick question for Mr. Stefaneri, please.
Mr. Stefaneri, our operating margin.
Mr. Stefaneri, if I could. Mr. Stefaneri, you claim that you're lower prices than the United States. So I have here, I think your all-in North American plan standard, not Black Friday sale, is $125 for a single line to be data, text, unlimited for North America. I have here a friend's bill who gets 5 lines in the United States, everything around the world included for those 5 lines, and it costs $280. And now that's a family plan. So on an individual plan, I have a friend who went across to Rochester, not far from Ottawa, and get paid $60 for the same global plan. You're charging twice as much as I can get from AT&T, not a little small company, AT&T in the United States as a regular plan. How can you claim that your rates are lower when AT&T is charging half of what you are?
Committee member, I think it's important that we stick to the facts and we compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. In your example, you took a single line and compared it to an AT&T
family line. I did a family line of 5 as well.
Mr.
What you'll
Perkins.
find, and the data is very clear, ISED's own study showed that Canadian prices in virtually every bucket was 25% lower